Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Thank you for joining us this week. I'm Ben Brayshaw here with Dan Mickelon today. Seth's out on a little bit of medical leave since he tripped and hurt himself. We have quite a show for you today, and I'm very excited, actually, on a lot of levels, to be here with you to talk about this, because I think it's so crucial that we get Americans to understand how to save money now. And I think today's show is going to be something that's really going to change a lot of the perspective of how you look at money and what this future looks like for you. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And, we're coming into probably the craziest season, right, Dan, with taxes and so forth. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it is. It's a busy time, and I think this show's timely because we've been hitting on in the last couple of shows some good tax tips. I know a lot of people make New Year's resolutions around how to save more and be more disciplined with their money. So I think there's going to be a couple little tips that anybody listening today can pull out of this show and hopefully apply, and really give you that leg up on getting saving, which is kind of the step before getting invested, right? And in this environment, we've been speaking to it a lot in the last 6 months on air here, with savings rates where they are between CDs and money markets and all kinds of savings account. This is really prime time to take advantage of that. I feel that's temporary. I think you do too, Ben. So, this really is the time to begin that discipline, get into it, get some money in that account and start earning some interest.
Well, I think like a lot of us, we get our paycheck and after we're done with the 15 subscriptions we didn't know we were paying for, and the the rent or the mortgage or the car payment or whatever it is, it's kind of like, what's left? What's left for me? Like, where's the rest of the money? What happened to all of my money? Like, where is it? And how do I do that? And I think today's show is going to be really valuable for people to try to get a better control on their dollars, see how to save more, see how to be more financially steward-like, without huge amounts of change. I mean, it just really give people the ability to empower themselves financially, and it's a huge issue. But before we dive right into that, I would love to be honest with you, Dan, we have up for you our Money in the News.
First article up today comes to us from CNN. Thank you, Brian Mena. U.S. economy grew at shocking pace in the fourth quarter. And this article is simply alluding to the fact that the GDP here in the U.S. exceeded estimates by a pretty astounding rate in the fourth quarter of 23. It grew at a rate of 2.5%, which was a little slower, 3.3% from October through December, which was a little slower than the quarter before, which was at 4.9%, but gave us an overall for the year growth rate of 2.5%, which really at each level was beating the forecasts about where our economy was at. So we've had this lingering notion out there for really a long time that recession is imminent, and we've discussed this a lot, and that literally ties right back to the Fed's behavior. And every historical precedent out there tells us that if you raise rates quickly, on the tail of that, within 9 months or so, the economy will fall into recession, and we've rose rates at the quickest pace in history. So, for that expectation to be there certainly made sense. But what's played out so far is once again, the U.S. consumer and our ability and desire to spend, which, as I'm thinking and saying that out loud, kind of flies in the face of our savings show. But hopefully we can kind of rectify those things here.
Solving the world's problems.
Yes, it's not everybody's job listening to support our economy, okay? So we can slow it down here a little bit. But, hey, truth be told, 2/3 of our economy is made up of consumer spending, and they continue to carry the day. I mean, we're just spending money like crazy, and it is fully staved off that recession. And in fact, the economy's growing. Things are doing well.
Well, I think there's a correlation, a mathematical number I couldn't actually calculate. I don't know if I could even calculate it if I had enough time to calculate it. But I mean, when you print $14 trillion, right, at what point in time can the production of assets and money into our economy, the infusion, offset an interest rate hike? Like, where have you printed so much money that the interest rate hike is irrelevant? Because that's currently what's going on. Because Dan, what was it? A month or two ago, we were talking about one article where statistically, whenever you've doubled rates, or had a rate increase of more than a percent, I can't remember what the statistic was, but it was like in 9 months, every time there's been a recession. And we went way past that number. And so statistically, we should be staring down the gun barrel of a recession here. And we could be. And I think there's a lot of headwinds, a lot of really unpredictable headwinds. We have Israel, we have Ukraine, we have Russia, China, Taiwan, we have an election. I mean, there's just so many headwinds. However this thing spins, I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's even talk of civil war in our country. I mean, it's just, I saw a picture of, I saw some meme of Ted Cruz with a haircut from the Civil War days with pork chops and stuff, saying he's getting ready. There's just so much crazy stuff going on there. I think the financial economy is it's on such a delicate balance that any one of these things could just throw everything off, and you could see some major catastrophe financially. And I think that's what a lot of people fear. And I think that's one of the relevance of our show today, which is, save more now, because having more assets gives you more security, more safety, more ability to, overcome those kind of trouble scenarios.
Yeah, I think the simple idea of an emergency fund has never been more important than it is right now. And uniquely,
totally agree.
Uniquely, that emergency fund can actually grow for you, which is another incentive, another reason to really get focused in on that.
Gotcha. Next up, we have here from Yahoo Finance, Wall Street applauds Netflix earnings as stock soars, but not everyone is bullish. This is coming from Alexandra Canal. Now, this is really interesting. So Netflix shares, if you haven't watched them, they plummeted way down after, COVID, and then they have come soaring back up. And I think a lot of this has to do with some of the competition in the subscription world. A lot of people have left Disney and kind of gone to Netflix. That's been kind of a shift back. But the article says that Netflix has actually gone to a whole nother realm of enforcing their subscription and having some security around that, so people weren't using other people's logins and so forth and so forth. So the crackdown on all of that has allowed the subscription to go up to a significant level. They actually beat their projections by 8 million additional subscriptions this last quarter, which is absolutely incredible. 23 million new subscriptions. Their earnings per share were up over 10%. The stock was up 10% the other day. It's just been absolutely crushing it. Now, not everyone's saying, hey, this is going to be great, because they're wondering at what point in time have you hit the peak. And Dan, I don't know about you, but I was reading this article and I was thinking to myself, they were talking about how not only have the subscriptions risen, but the CEO is talking about how many ads and the ability to create more marketing through Netflix than anything else. But what I remember about Netflix was this was supposed to be the great space to go to not deal with ads.
Right.
Right? I mean, 10, 15 years ago, their whole story was, pay to watch the shows you want to watch and not have to deal with the ad. I think this is absolutely incredible that they're just, revenue driven.
Yeah, I think like all things, we'll probably end up back where we were. It's going to be like watching regular TV again, because there's going to be ads every 30 seconds. But
if I have to get up and change the rotor and move the antenna down in a different direction, I'm not going to be happy.
No, don't kick your TV. That's not going to help. But yeah, the Netflix story is interesting. But to your point, Ben, I think they'll do anything they can to monetize, right? However they can squeeze a buck out of this, they're going to do it. And there is a lot of concern that this most recent spike is really just driven by their crackdown on that password sharing issue that they suffered from for a long time.
Yeah.
So how many of these are truly new subscriptions versus people finally relenting and just choosing to pay for the subscription they'd been using for however long? So organic growth from here might be a challenge for them. But the article does point to an interesting idea. They've signed on with WWE, the wrestling company, to start airing some of their platform, which is wildly popular. And it wasn't referenced here in the article, but I read elsewhere that the NBA kind of took notice of that. And so that's something that's kind of out there in the wind, is that the NBA might be joining up and doing a night or two a week of NBA game coverage through Netflix, which all goes back to, I don't know if you were even watching last week when there was an NFL game, a playoff game, that you had to go sign up for Peacock streaming to see it, which aggravated the heck out of millions of people, that you had to add the service. But it worked. I mean, viewership was through the roof. I mean, people did sign up just to get access to this game. So I think for streaming services out there in general, that was kind of proof positive that, hey, it might alienate people, it might aggravate people, but if it's product they're clamoring for, like the NBA, like WWE, they're going to subscribe.
Well, this is the thing. I am so frustrated with NFL in general. I think they can't kick themselves in the teeth more. Like that whole Peacock thing about that. I said to my son, I go, if you want to watch the NFL, you literally have to have a PhD to know which channel, service, streaming app. I mean, I can't remember between Monday night, Sunday. Like, if you buy NFL ticket, you would think that would be the ticket to the NFL. Like the name of it alone would mean that you would have access to every game out there. Well, sorry, you're wrong.
Yeah.
You don't get access to the NFL game in your area because you have to. That's one thing. You don't get NFL on Sunday nights. You don't get NFL on Thursday nights or Monday night. I mean, it's like you get Sunday afternoon. You get 10 games a week or whatever it is. And I'm just like, I said to my son, I was like, it's frustrating because by the time you figure out where you're going to watch the game, you're already a quarter in.
Yeah. I mean, we're just gluttons for punishment. I mean, the NFL is that unique thing that, they just got us all over the barrel, and people will just follow them wherever they go. And, part of me says, and I hate Roger Goodell anyway. This is going back to the old Tom Brady stuff, of course. But, it's just like, the gall of this guy to do this all to us, just heap this effort on top of us and make us pay more and pay more and pay more. But truth be told, I don't know when the last time I missed a game is. Like, I do it. I'm one of the sheep.
Well, the thing is I didn't watch NFL, Dan, as for 3 years. I didn't watch it for 3 years. This whole kneeling thing, I was just done with them. I was done. Now they don't even air it if they're doing it. So
yeah,
I think they figured that out, or they don't let them. But, it's just irritating. And I think the same thing with the NBA. They're all watching this stuff, and it's like, at some point in time, people just get tired. They get tired of doing it. I said to my son, I was like, I don't even care about this game anymore. Like, I'm too frustrated to even watch it. So it's not worth ticking off your clients, that's for sure. So that was horrible.
That was a tangent we went on there. But anyway, Netflix stock, keep an eye on it. Estimates of varying between, $410 a share and $475 a share. So quite a bit of range there on where people see this thing going. But it's a company that has, it's one of those companies like Google or, Zoom that its brand has become the moniker for a whole genre, a whole industry of streaming services. So I think when you reach that level in terms of a long-term buy, it's got to be a good play. Next up, this is coming to us from Fox Business. Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg calls for cash apps to crack down on fraudsters. And this is something that has also been kind of bubbling up in the news at a couple different levels. I've seen it in a few different places, and it's been a long-time concern of mine. But these cash apps and their vulnerability as they just continue to become more and more popular, and we're talking about services like Zelle, Venmo, Apple Pay, PayPal. They seem to come out with a new one every day. But these kind of instant services that you can use to purchase things through your phone, virtually anywhere. I mean, retail vendors take it, almost anywhere. It's really easily, it's very accessible for people. Private transactions, amongst family members, things like that. It's just an easy way to move money around, quite honestly. But there are some inherent vulnerabilities there, and it is, as far as the banking and finance world, which we know well, this is kind of the outer frontier of that. The regulation is not quite there. The oversight is not quite there. And, although those two things can be a real pain in the neck, there's some protections that come with that. And I think in this cash app space, there's a real lack of that. And so for people that are using it, be mindful, be careful. The DA here suggests that, they go to multi-tier authentication and take on some steps to protect the consumer, much like accessing other, a little bit more highly guided websites that we've kind of all gotten used to. But techniques like that and building in some kind of stopgap measures to make sure that information and that data isn't being accessed by criminals, I think it's an important step. And, for people who frequently use this stuff, keep your eyes out for that because I think it's coming.
Well, I think there's a lot to this app world. I mean, the money movement through apps has, only been visible to me because of kids, like my kids and sending money at college or whatever the scenario is. And like some of these crackdowns on these programs are complicated. Dan, I was reading through this article and I was just saying, I really like the fact that there's, secondary controls to make sure it's really you and this, that, and the other thing. But I don't consider myself a tech moron here on this stuff. I mean, I know how to open up an app and link bank accounts and pay bills online, but I had a lot of trouble with the Venmo at one point and PayPal at one point. And I don't even use Zelle because I couldn't get it to work one time. And I know people use it all the time, so maybe I am really that inept. but at the same time, I do appreciate the secondary pieces to all this stuff, but the limits on the monetary value and so forth, I think it's like anything. They should be able to cover stuff like banks do. Like if it's a wire transfer, banks don't cover that. Like if it's a mistake and it's your fault, you're supposed to double check those numbers. But, there should be a way to be able to manage between the people and pull the money back. I mean, they're the ones sending it from Venmo person to Venmo person. If you set up an ACH program, you can move money back and forth. It's a link to that account. So if a company accidentally ACHs money out, they can pull it back, from a banking scenario. Wiring, different. So I don't necessarily know why that exists, but I do think some of these controls should be able to be done. The limits on the monetary value, I mean, they're already fairly rigid. If my son needs money for, or daughter needs money for rent or something like that, it's not like you can send a huge amount of money anyways. So I don't know. I think the limits are pretty rigid. I mean, what are they talking about? $20, $100, $1,000? Like, where are these? Because it's only a few $1,000s that you can send at a time. I think it's maybe 4 or 5. And so when it comes to today's world, that's still a lot of money, and I get it. But you can make it $2,000. I mean, you can't even rent a place for $2,000. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I think some of these limits and restrictions will kind of take the utility out of it in a lot of ways, but at the same time, it's just something. If you're a frequent user, and particularly if you're using it for large amounts, like you said, Ben, and we see this all the time. People helping kids out and doing that. Just be mindful, and I think take steps to protect yourself. And if you're sending money to somebody make that call, make sure it arrived, and the transaction is on the up and up the way you expected it to be. But criminals think quickly, they learn fast, and if they think there's a vulnerability here, they're sure to exploit it. So, just keep an eye on your account. And I've gotten a number of texts along the way and phone calls from obvious fraudsters, asking me to say, oh, hey, listen, did you send Venmo to XYZ yesterday? And so they'll give you a phone call purported to know about transactions that were attempted, but they blocked, or looking for a refund, and they're always asking you for information. So if you find yourself kind of on one of these phone calls, I'd say exit quickly. Protect your information. Typically, these companies don't call you.
I did talk to a client about her mother was scammed by somebody for hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they were writing checks out of their brokerage account, having their financial planner send them money and so forth, and was telling them that they were doing it because they were buying a property or a house or something. And it was a really very tragic story, and I felt horrible listening to it. And she didn't even tell her children she was doing this. Fraud is a really horrible thing, and I think the daughter and the mother are very, very close, and the fact that the daughter didn't know it for about 6 months that this was going on, it was pretty horrible. There's a lot of people out there that are getting scammed, and it's very embarrassing when you are, and you don't want to report it. You don't want to tell anybody. These scam artists, they literally will brainwash people, and you need to be careful. If you feel like you may be getting scammed, call somebody. Call somebody, get some help, get some verification. We've saved clients from that kind of stuff at times. It needs to make sense, and a lot of this stuff doesn't make sense. You get so brainwashed, and the story sounds so good, you feel like you're doing the right thing. So, anyways, give us a call if that's the case. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We're going to be right back with Save More Money Now and how to do that This is a show you're definitely going to want to stick around for. It's going to have some really great stuff to take away. We'll be right back.
Hello, everyone. This is Dan Mickelon of Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for professional guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Advisors are here to help. Our team of experts will provide you personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit us at BrayshawFinancial.com today and schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. I'm Ben Brayshaw, joined here with Dan Mickelon, missing Seth Crustman this week, unfortunately. I always miss Seth. He always does a great job bringing the show, and we were talking about that during the break. But I like to think I can do a good job, too, once in a while, Dan. So,
but you're carrying the torch. You're getting us through.
I'm carrying the torch for Seth here today. So, but you can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And I'm glad you stuck with us because this show is really a valuable show for a lot of people. There is so much going on in the side of the world with inflation and feeling like you don't have enough money. And it's like, well, how do I save when everything is so expensive? And it's Save More Now is our show today. Dan, it is a complicated topic because I know that a lot of our listeners are really sitting there saying to themselves, man, saving money is a very tough thing to do. How am I going to do this? And I got to tell you, we have a long list here, and it's not even the tip of the iceberg of ways. We've worked with a lot of people with budgeting and going through this stuff, and people say, well, why do I need to save? I mean, I got a 401k I can take a loan from. I've got I do have a little bit of savings, maybe not as much as I should, but we have school for our kids. We've got we've got to get a new car, and we have all these things. Like, these are real issues and these are real expenses. But a lot of people out there know that they don't have the savings they need, and in today's world, with the vulnerabilities that we're all facing, and those vulnerabilities are in our economy with the raised rates, a recession and a pullback in our economy, you can kind of feel it. I was talking to my son the other day, and they literally got a paycheck. He valet parks cars in college. He got a paycheck, and they reduced his pay by 20%. They reduced all their pay by 20% and said, we just can't afford it. The costs are just too much. And they said, you're just going to have to work harder. Not what any college kid wants to hear when he's trying to work his way through college. The economy and the people and the businesses are feeling it. I know we're feeling it in certain areas. If that happens, eventually it's going to trickle down. I think the world around us, Dan, can feel some strain on our economy. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that there is... there's kind of got to be an end to the glory days here and at some point. But I just think the whole topic of savings can apply to anybody regardless of where you find yourself in the financial spectrum, right? We can all save a little bit more. And anybody listening to the show, whether you're, just well off and kind of have a great handle on all this, I think there's probably going to be a tip or two in here that you could take advantage of. I mean, in my experience, when I'm speaking of family and my grandparents, my parents, when people kind of make that decision to become a saver, it's a lifelong discipline. Like, they tend to not really give that up. And, we've talked to retirees that we feel like, are too averse to spending their money. So, I mean, there are some extremes that people can get to in this kind of, notion of being a good steward and being disciplined around money. But hey, bottom line is 99% of the people out there, we can all save more. We could all do a little bit better. And nobody's ever come to us, and you use this line a lot, Ben, and regretted that they saved as much as they did, right? That's not a conversation that we get to have very often.
Yeah, I wish I hadn't saved as much money, Dan. That just was a bad decision. When it comes to saving, a lot of people ask us, what's enough? What is enough to have in the bank? And there's a lot of rules of thumb out there, and I would say that, the first goal is to try to get, 1 month of income saved, and then the next goal would be 3 months. The end goal would be 6 months. If you can have 6 months in the bank, you've really hit a milestone for saving. And I think that's super healthy. And I think, if you're shooting for those types of numbers, it doesn't just mean that it's just going to be sitting in a checking account. And like you had pointed out earlier, Dan, I mean, there's so many opportunities to not only just save, but now there's actually growth features. Like you can get CDs and savings accounts that have interest rates that we haven't seen in a decade that are wonderful, that you can allow your savings to grow because it's just sitting there. And I think that's a really healthy area. So when you're talking about savings, what's enough? We really try to get people to at least 3 months straight up. And it doesn't need to be in the bank. It can be remote. It can be in a brokerage account. It could be anywhere. I mean, we're fine. Like as long as you have enough money flowing through and you have an account that's truly dedicated towards an emergency fund, 3 to 6 months is wonderful. But it needs to be, Dan, number one, for us, a separate account. It can't be that everyday checking account. That is the first place we want you to do, is set up a separate account, checking, savings, CD, brokerage account, wherever, and park those funds out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah, it's got to be, not instant access. If it's there, it's in, it's in your wallet, like your debit card, or you're trying to trust yourself to keep a mental ledger going with a certain portion of your checking account earmarked for savings. That's a strategy doomed to fail. It's just not. Something's going to pop up that you're going to feel like you need to buy, and that money's going to get spent. So step number one for sure, separate account, right? Get that money set aside. And I think step number two is, once you've made that commitment and open that separate account, set up some kind of a periodic automatic draft over to that, whether it's $25 a week, $50 a week, whatever number that you can reasonably manage out of your budget. Pull it out, set it up so that it's automatic, and it just happens. I mean, I think that's the beauty of 401k and the benefit that that's been to all American workers who are able to participate, is that it comes out first. It's coming right off the top. You don't get a chance to say no. There's no real discretion involved in it once you've set it up and chosen the amount of your deduction. It's just going to happen. And then we all kind of learn to live with what's left. And you got to take that same discipline applied here, although you need to manually set it up yourself, a little separate from the payroll arrangement. But take that step, get it done. You won't regret it, and you will learn to live without.
Yeah, Dan, the one thing I've personally done, I actually have an online bank account, which is, not, well, it was online, was 15, 20 years ago, was a big deal, but it was Capital One, and I would just transfer a specific amount of money for savings, for vacation, and for my next car. And the way I did it was I had allocated those funds there, but I'm like, well, this is still part of my emergency story, but I'm going to try to save that and hope that an emergency doesn't happen. And so that when I went to go buy another car, or we wanted to go on vacation, I could look at my overall savings and say, this can be now really pulled out of everything else, even though it's part of my overall savings, but it was not fully available, like on an instantaneous notice. If I needed to do something, it forced me some time to transfer it back to a bank account, to get it to a checking account, and so forth, which brings us to number 3 here for you guys today. A 30-day rule on purchases, on large purchases. So how do you evaluate that? I think we have a rule that if it's a 30-day rule on purchases that are more than a week's pay. So if you're going to spend 1 week or 25% of your monthly income on something, take 30 days. It just can't possibly be that you have to do something that crazy. Now, obviously, this is separate from a boiler, or your furnace is busted, or like you have a
we're not talking medical expenses here, right?
Yeah, we're not talking like, hey, listen, I need a heart surgery, I'm going to wait 30 days. Think about it. This is just like, hey, I'm buying a car, going on a trip, we're going to put an addition on the house, we're going to, these are expensive things that are more than a week's pay. You should be able to take 30 days to think about it. Yeah,
I think this is something that I would love to institute at home, as a matter of fact. But just the idea of, there's so many things in this day and age that
we're not going to talk about improbabilities, Dan.
Oh, I know. Luckily, she's not listening. But it's just so easy to buy things. It's instant access. I mean, you sit on your phone, the online shopping. I mean, my goodness, they can't make it any easier to spend your money than where we're at right now. It's just so simple, right? So if it's a big deal, like a week's pay, set it aside for 30 days, think on it. And I get a real strong suspicion 30 days from now, probably half of those purchases are just going to kind of fade away.
Well, I'll tell you, Dan, what's really good about this rule, and we don't have a hard and fast rule, but we do, my wife and I really are. And Dan, I don't know about your wife. Obviously, she's not listening to the show. My wife can't get enough of what I have to say, so she listens to the show over and over again. It's pretty incredible. So, but what I have found is that when we do wait, we either find something we like better or we find something less expensive. Like we find something that's even more well suited for what we're like, oh, I'm glad we waited because look at this is actually a better scenario for us.
Yeah, it gives you time to do due diligence, to really consider it. And sometimes stuff comes on sale, right? Something pops up, some online coupon, or so it's still even the same item if you haven't improved upon it, but you might get it at a better price.
Right. Which brings us right to the conversation of budgeting, okay? Number 4 for us is the 50-30-20 rule, okay? The 50-30-20 rule, if you're not familiar with it, is, 50% of what your budget is 50% of what you need, 30% of what you want, and 20% is what you save. When I was studying way back when, I remember talking to this one person, and he was saying to me, and he wasn't even quantifying tithe or any of the other conversations that you have inside, a healthy budget system. But, he was telling me that, hey, save 10% for retirement. He said, no. Retirement, the future, your savings is always 20% of your assets. And this wasn't even from this rule. He had just discovered that was the only way mathematically, based on all the historical savings and investing and everything else he had to meet the goals. He said, I would need to save 20%. He goes, this whole 10% thing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so no, tithe is 10%. And savings 20%. Now I got to figure out how to live on 70%. So there's a lot of complicated conversations inside of all of these moving parts, right, Dan? So I'm not making the story easier here, but
right.
But it is a really complicated conversation. But God's always provided for us, and I truly believe when you put Him first, He does. And it's not a guarantee. He always puts you first, but you might not be rolling in the money and so forth, but that's why you're listening to this show, is really to improve your financial health. And I honestly believe that you're listening to this show for a reason. Yeah,
and that 20% too, it's that's for savings once you've managed to get yourself out of debt. If you happen to be in debt to start this program, set aside that 20% to pay down as quickly as you can, particularly in this rate environment that we find ourselves in. You want to knock that out, or at least get it under control so that you can begin to save. So that's a different application of the 20% there.
Well, and I like, Dan, how we have these listed out, because the next one here is it's really right to the point. It's like, hey guys, I really appreciate your 50-30-20 rule, and that's wonderful, but how do I do that with the fact that we're already spending all this money? And that really comes down to making some hard decisions, and those hard decisions are things like, hey, rent and mortgage. Are you living in a place that's too expensive for you? Do you have a 3-bedroom and you only really need a 2-bedroom apartment? What and where are you spending your money? One of the best things that I've seen happen in the rental world is people who own buildings or own investments like that. They want on-time payers who help around the place, who are good tenants. People who own real estate do not want problems. They just want the mortgage paid every month. And honestly, if they're just paying the mortgage for the most part, they're probably doing really, really well, and they're just happy with that. And so if you become a complicated tenant, people don't want you around, and they don't care whether they raise the rent and you leave because they figure they can find somebody easier. When you're looking for a place, I know people who have found rent-free, apartments and so forth, doing work for the owner of the property. There are opportunities out there for you to do that. Just honestly, some landlords will give you a break on how much they raise your rent from you year over year just because you're helping around the place. So being a good tenant is really, really important. And then it comes to utility bills, Dan. And I got to tell you, I did this. Our electric bill was so high, I was just absolutely floored by it. And I called Unitil in Concord and found out I could choose a different provider for the actual electricity, signed up for 6 months, dropped my rate in half, and my utility bill got cut by at least more than a third. So there are things you can do, but you have to be proactive.
Yeah, cheaper energy is a huge aspect of that. But being efficient with the energy that you do use at whatever rate you're paying, right? Make sure you get a thermostat that works, right? Make sure your windows are sealed and closed. Buy LED light bulbs So there's different things that you can do, within your space, within your energy budget to create extra efficiency. That's definitely worth taking those steps. I mean, things like a drafty window. I mean, you really have to. I'm getting memories of growing up, but like, that's money flying right out the window. How many times have you heard that, right? Because you get the heat on and the window's leaking. So, all those simple steps you can take just to, really just tighten up the environment you're in and save on those energy expenditures. It's a big deal.
The other thing here is there's only two ways: you either spend less or make more. And I think that's really where people say, well, how do I really amplify my financials? And that is spending less or saving more or making more. And side hustles, we talk about this, we use this phrase, and it kind of, I don't know. I say the word side hustle, Dan, and I feel a little bit like, like hustling somebody. I just don't like the word. But, I know people saving in different capacities of their life and working for their family and doing I knew people who started mowing lawns for people in their neighborhood just to make a few extra bucks. They said, hey, listen, let me mow your lawn for the summer. I'm just looking to save money for this. I know one guy was saving for one of his daughter's events, and he's like, I just need to make some more money. And so I had him, I really wanted to help him. I was like, hey, that's cool. I'd rather pay him, somebody who I'm investing in as a friend and a family, kind of thing. There's a lot of people out there that are looking for that. So, there's nothing wrong with mowing a lawn or, offering to shovel people's walks, or there's always something else out there. Part-time jobs, you don't have to have them forever. You just let the person know, hey, listen, I'm looking for some extra work. People love that because they don't want to have a lot of full-time employees too, and I think that's a missed opportunity in our society. My mom worked 2 part-time jobs and a full-time job. I remember that as a kid.
Yeah, there's lots of things you can do these days. I mean, if you play an instrument, you can offer lessons. If you are, exceptionally knowledgeable in a given area, be a tutor, right? You can help some kids learn or get caught up in school. And there is a huge market out there for elderly people that are just looking for some company. I mean, quite honestly, there's this ample opportunity out there to not even be like a full-fledged caretaker, but just go spend some time with somebody, and people are willing to pay for that.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Listen, you're in the middle of a lot of things in your life, and taxes are right around the corner. Give us a call. Talk to us. We have people that do taxes here, help you really make sure you're saving the most you possibly can in that area as well. We're going to be right back. Save more now. That's our show this week. Don't go away. We have a lot more to offer.
Are you looking for personalized guidance to kickstart your investing journey? Look no further. Brayshaw Financial Group and our planners are here to help. Our team of experts will provide personalized advice tailored to your financial goals. Visit BrayshawFinancial.com today to schedule your free consultation. Brayshaw Financial, investing made easy.
You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. We have offices coast to coast. We have people all over the country that can help you if you have financial needs and concerns. So, don't count out getting real help in a lot of the things here that we're talking about. Because it's not just about investing. It's about just being wise with your money. And our show today is Save More Now and really, building a strong financial foundation. We talk about that on a regular basis. And, not everything's about the latest stock tip. You get there when you're financially stable. And we talk a lot about investments and how that goes. But today's show is really more about you and really getting a hold of things for yourself. And I hope you guys take this to heart, because saving more now in today's society and the economy and what's going on in this world, it probably can't be more timely than today. Next up on our list, we just talked about a number of things like, getting a side job, something to help bring more income in, even if it's part-time or for a short period, to get yourself to that important number of having enough money that you have a little bit of security, a little bit of a a spread between, one job and another or a problem financially. But one of the things that's just eking away at our financials, Dan, I don't know about you, is just subscriptions. I mean, it is just, I go into this. I had signed up for a map thing for a hiking thing one time, and next thing you know, I had a $39 a month subscription. I'm like, where did this? I'm like, oh my word! It wasn't a month. I'm sorry, it was a year. But I was like, $40. I went hiking twice. It's it's better than getting lost in the woods and dying. But I just felt like that annual subscription was just was horrible.
There's so many of those. I get this alert on my phone. I don't know if it's I think it's Apple Pay or something. It's like 99 cents, $2.99, $3.99. And it happens 4 or 5 times a month. And honestly, God, I have no idea what any of these are. I really don't. But I think they get us in this position where the amount is so nominal and we're all so busy that they just know you're not going to pursue it. You're not going to stop your life to figure out, what did I just spend 99 cents on? But the fact is that's, month in, month out, it'll take years, before you really set aside that time and go through that process. So if trying to create a savings budget is on your mind, take that time now. Just open up your checking account, look at all these auto drafts that are occurring, and see which ones are actually meaningful. We spoke about Netflix, right, earlier in the show and Money in the News, and, they keep raising their rate. All the subscriptions, all the streaming services do that over time. And, you accumulate a bunch of them because you wanted to see some show or some movie that had just come out, and then you realize when you're sitting back, you haven't watched that channel in 6 months, right? So why carry the subscription? And a lot of these places they'll tease you for sign up for 7 days for free, and then we'll start billing you because they're counting on the fact that you're gonna not cancel that subscription 7 days from now. You're gonna sign up today and you're not gonna do it, just like the NFL got half of America with that playoff game. So really just be disciplined there. Take the time. If you're not using it, don't pay for it. Later on, if you feel the need to go back and sign up again, you can always do it. It takes 5 minutes, but save yourselves that 6 months worth of cost that is just flying out the window, literally.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, while you were talking, Dan, I just went on my phone and I actually canceled the subscription. I was like, I should probably check my subscription again. Cancel. I'm telling you, it's really. You don't even know sometimes that you're signing up for a subscription. It's pretty crazy how quick it is. The next thing I have...
One quick thing, too, before we go on, and I don't know if you just did this, and I haven't done it myself. I've not signed up, but I read somewhere that there's actually apps now, and probably at another subscription cost, that you can consolidate and monitor all of your subscriptions. I have no idea what that costs, but that sounds like the one that's worthwhile because supposedly you can literally scroll through and cancel them from this one consolidated place without having to reach out to each provider and do it. If that's true, then that's worth whatever it costs because that is gold.
That's $50 a month.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, this is one idea that a lot of people have never heard of. And if you have, you're part of the few. But here's a game to play. And the game is to have 1 day a month that you don't spend anything. You don't go anywhere. You don't spend a dime on anything. You
zero.
Have a 0 day once a month. And the goal is not to just get it to once a month, but to get it to twice a month. That makes you much more conscious, aware in what you're spending. If you can do that, just 1 day a month, it's incredible that you can do that, if you can do that.
Yeah, that's something to aspire to, and you'll feel good about it. You get a plan for it, and I think just all the mental energy that goes into getting yourself there and be committing to that day is just adding to building this discipline overall. It just increases your awareness. It increases your belief that you can actually do some of these things and stick to it. And I've yet to experience this day, but at the end of it, I'd be pretty proud. So that's something I might try and incorporate into my world. But that's a great discipline. If you can get yourself there and do it, kudos to you. It's well worth it.
Absolutely. Now, this is an interesting thing because a lot of people have really large purchases coming up. One of them that's more common for most is just a car. Needing a new car or looking for a new car. Using that 30-day rule we talked about earlier was really good. But the one thing about this 30-day rule is to make sure that you're looking at the end of the quarter. A lot of automobile purchasers are, at the end of the quarter are significantly less expensive or just simply because they're trying to hit their quarterly numbers. That's when bonus compensation hits. That's when a lot of these things happen. So, if you're looking for a car, don't buy it January 1st. Buy it at the end of December or buy it at the end of March. That's when you really want to focus on vehicle purchases.
And consider that not just for cars, but anything that you think there's a salesperson's incentive involved in, right? Any purchase like that. Ask them about that. Consider that. Kind of look into it and see if it's in their interest to make sure that you get that sale closed that day. Chances are they're willing to bend on the price for you a little bit.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Next up is sell unused items. This is one that I've taken advantage of lately, and super easy to do with Facebook Marketplace, little promo for them. But I have found my way into selling all kinds of stuff, household items. Like, my kids have all grown out of their toddler beds, for instance. We broke them down, cleaned them up, took some pictures, threw it on the internet, and sold them all. Right, so stuff like that, if that's part of your life, if you're raising kids, we all know that they move through stuff, outgrow stuff, and if it's in reasonable enough condition, you'll be able to sell it because somebody else with that toddler needs it, and they'd much rather buy it on the discount than go out and spend full price for new stuff.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, and as we become more of a cashless society, unfortunately, a lot of people use credit cards, and I think one of the things is really making sure you match up the credit cards with how you spend your money. Because there's just rewards that are focused on things that maybe you do or use. Like, let's say you like to travel, and you say, you know what, I don't want to spend $500 or $600 on a plane ticket, but as I'm buying my groceries, that's going to build reward points for my plane tickets. That's kind of a simple one. But maybe you need furniture, or you need sporting paraphernalia for your kids. I mean, I know we've used a Discover card where we get points at Dick's Sporting Goods or any of these places. Like, maybe you can't afford the hockey gear. That's super expensive, or the lacrosse. Here's a way that you can save towards something like that without, actually having to worry about spending those dollars.
Yeah, and if you are a traveler, and this is one my brother-in-law just tipped me off on, is they have access to these membership clubs. I mean, there's nothing more outrageous than spending money on food at an airport. I mean, they are absolutely gouging you left, right, and center. Those prices are crazy. But if you have one of these credit cards that get you access to those flight clubs, behind that exclusive door that you can just get a peek in when somebody's walking in, everything in there is free, right? So you can get your drink, you can get your meal, you can sit down and be in actual comfort while your flight's delayed for 4 hours. And that comes with some of these credit cards. So check that out if you're a flyer.
Now, this one here is buyer beware. So, fix it yourself. That's kind of the automatic scenario in our world, is to call somebody to do it. Now, I'm not talking about plumbing and electrical. That's maybe, grade level, above us. But if there's something you can do to fix it yourself, or to adjust it, to paint it yourself, to, if something's broken, there's certain things you can do. Take the effort to schedule some time out, because I know life is busy, but sometimes just fixing it yourself just puts a few bucks in your pocket that you never thought you'd have.
Yeah, YouTube it is a great place to find out all kinds of tips and techniques to get stuff like that done around the house. And yeah, well worth taking advantage of for sure.
You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. You might be saying to yourself, hey, listen, I need to figure out how to save more. Like, this is a problem. I'm struggling with this, or a budget's an issue. If these are concerns for you, give us a call. We're happy to talk to you. We're happy to work through some of these problems that people have. You're not alone. And that's why the show exists. That's why we exist. We help people financially across the board. And if taxes are the biggest concern you're staring at right now, give us a call for that. We have professionals that can help you do that. Don't go anywhere. We're going to close out the show with some really huge takeaways for you. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Seth Cressman with Brayshaw Financial Group. Are you looking for a hassle-free way to invest? Look no further than Brayshaw Financial Group. With Brayshaw Financial Group, you can start investing with as little as $100 and enjoy a user-friendly platform with diverse ranges of investment options. Visit Brayshaw Financial Group and start your investment journey today. Brayshaw Financial Group, investing made easy.
We appreciate you listening to Money on Tap. You can contact us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. And now, more of this week's program.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money on Tap. We're going to close this story out about saving more now with some pretty strong takeaways and some things that really are things you should take to heart and look through and consider. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. We'd love to get your email. Subscribe to us on Instagram or Facebook. Our Instagram is Money on Tap 3D. Learn more. This is what we're all about.
Another great idea is to do your shopping at thrift stores and consignment stores. And this is something that, I got a stepson who's a senior in high school, and it's become a trend amongst him and his friends. So they're able to get stuff there cheap. They're going to burn through clothes very, very quickly. So it's a great way to spend less on things that aren't going to last forever. And it actually works both ways. We talked about selling unused items just a few minutes ago. And they had some promotion at one of these local shops here that we absolutely loaded his car for 3 different runs. They were buying anything you had for $1 a pound. I mean, they were buying literally anything you had for $1 a pound. And so we had old plates, pots, pans, clothes, you name it, loaded into this car. It was great. I would have paid them to come get it, but the fact that they were paying him to take my junk was that was a double win. It was great.
This is one thing. I love my wife. She really is always looking to try to figure out how to save and do things. But she's a thrift store maniac. I mean, her and my daughter, they go to thrift stores and they find some of the nicest clothing. I mean, she came in the other day. She's like, "Here's the other thing I found for $5. It's brand new. It still has the tags on it from whatever store it was." And it was like Lululemon, I think it was, or one of these expensive outfitters. So she's like, "Who buys this?" And then it's just crazy. There are so many opportunities between furniture and so forth. It's silly sometimes, and especially with our kids, where I think she's just been a great steward. Our sons grow like weeds. It's like you buy some pants, and next thing you know, a month later they grow out of them. Even if you buy it at TJ Maxx or Marshalls, which is less expensive than the other store, it's a name brand. It's still half the price or a quarter of the price of that. So you're not going to find everything. It does take time, but that's what saving money is about: is being smart about how you use your time. The last two we have here are important because a lot of people are trying to figure out how to manage debt. And, the best thing you can possibly do is, one, not increase your debt as best you possibly can. I love that, don't spend anything in 30 days, Dan. But pay off your highest interest rate debt first. I have a lot of people who are, come to me like, well, I'm paying this one off because of X, Y, Z. It's like, but your overall cost is not saved unless you're paying the highest interest rate that you have down first. That's really where you need to focus your money and your time. I mean, that is literally the best way to get rid of it, to get out of debt. That is the number one thing you need to focus on. There's good debt and there's bad debt. And we all know what bad debt is. It's the extra car we don't need. It's the credit card that we have. We bought something we shouldn't have. But getting out of the debt at the highest interest rate possible. And then on top of it, call these credit cards. Ask them for a reduced rate. They will give it to you. And be careful, because when you start transferring credit card to credit card, I'll give you 0 interest for 6 months. It's like they charge you a fee to transfer it. Be aware. If you have a debt problem, give us a call. I mean, don't make huge mistakes all of a sudden and wonder how to. No charge. Give us a call. Happy to talk to you about it. Happy to try to see if we can get you some help, get you some simple direction on that.
Yeah, and our last point as we close out the show should be your first point, everybody listening at home. Set a goal to save now. Take this opportunity. We've just rattled off 15 different tips for you and different things that you can do in your day-to-day life to try and create this discipline, to build the habit. Now you have the techniques. You have some ideas. Set the goal now. Think about it. It's a goal that can be changed, right? So you can aim high. You can reduce if you have to. But come away from the show with a number in mind and just get committed to it. Set up that separate account. Set up that monthly sweep, weekly sweep, whatever the case is. But find an amount that you think you can work with and get into it, whether that's a 50-30-20 rule or some version of it. Get committed, build the utilities, get into the practice of it.
Well said. Really well said, Dan. Thank you for that. You've been listening to Money on Tap. Thank you for joining us this week. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or email us at info@yourmoneyontap.com. Make it Save Now More priority. Make that your next part of your story here financially. Give us a call. Thank you for joining us this week. Make it a successful one. We'll talk to you next week.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.
Well, bye.